Realized vol has been going higher. Obviously, Bitcoin has moved from sort of mid 40s to mid 50s on this move as we broke below 100K. ETH, though, has been far less orderly. It's jumped from around 70 realized to 120 realized. It's jumped by 50 vols, which is massive. Front end implied obviously spiked too over the weekend, but they have been reverted a lot already, right? So you can see how much they're coming back from those highs. Carry does remain positive in Bitcoin marginally, but look how negative we've got in ETH. Very negative carry there because you've had such a big jump in realized. Okay. Does that mean that it's going to necessarily keep moving as violently? I mean, it could easily do 10% in either direction because it's not found an equilibrium point yet necessarily. So that is one reason maybe to be a bit warier of selling gamma on ETH. But remember, with these type of things, the implieds tend to lead us back down. The fact that we had the big spike in implied and he's given so much of it back is basically the implied vols suggesting that, okay, the big moves happened and now we're going to go a bit more sensible again. Looking at the OHLC's charts, you can see these implied ranges were only really getting tested on the downside from Friday onwards. And then Bitcoin sort of broke through properly intraday today and then bounced. But on ETH, we've just overshot massively, right? Like not only did we break those implied ranges, we did it by a long way. You can see how much damage was done there. Yeah. Okay, that just kind of graphically kind of shows you the size and magnitude of the moves in the context of what the implied moves were. Term structures, no surprise, have inverted. We haven't seen huge moves in the front end of Bitcoin, so only up a few points in the front. And then the rest of the curve is actually in the red week on week. But if you look at ETH, we've got 20 vol point pop in the front up to like 87. And that's for this Friday's expiry. Then 8 vols for next week, 3 vols week after, and then we get about a vol point lower across the curve. So curve definitely moving into a backwardation with that aggressive bid for the front. You can see the time series here, kind of how that played out. But yeah, it's kind of all happening on that breakdown that we saw over the weekend, right? No big surprise. If you want to look at what happened to skew, we got to about a -4 on the front end skew on Bitcoin. So put premium by 4 vols. And then this chart's actually wrong. ETH got to about 10 vols in terms of how steep the put skew got. But again, both of them mean reverted now, which you can see on this chart here. Both of them mean reverted to about 2 vol put premium. So they didn't take long to revert back down once the market stabilized. So we are in a steeper contango than we were last week. We were at about zero skew in the front end, and we've seen that skew go more towards puts in both assets, which is pretty normal when you get this kind of downside move. Back end skew didn't budge though. You can see here, barely moving, very, very slightly lower, but nothing material. So still 5 or 6 vols, 4 calls in the back. And that is saying that the skew is saying this is likely to be a short-lived correction again. Still a bullish regime. Options market is not overly concerned for the long term here. Even if the technicals don't look great on what ETH just did, they still generally see the landscape as bullish, the regime as bullish, and this is just a little bit of a hiccup in that general trend, right? That's what the options market seems to be saying. Looking at relative value, ETH Bitcoin spot plummeting below that key 0.03 level on the liquidation move. It's now around sort of 0.027, so about 10% lower than that. But it did wick even lower, obviously, on that massive ETH drop. The vol, no surprise, outperforming by about 20 vols. So ETH front end vol 20 vols more, up 20 vols more than Bitcoin was. And that takes the spread from about 10 up to 30 vols in the front. But you can see that quickly reverts back at about March expiry. It's back to about 10 vols. So it's very much February expiries. It's very much the next week, let's say, that's in that stupid like 25, 30 volt premium because of how violent the realized has been. But it's showing you again that the market thinks this is more of a one-off liquidation event rather than an ongoing excess ETH volatility, right? So that's kind of what the options market seems to be saying, at least. The skew relative, fairly flat from like -1 to +1 across the curve. I'd say it's a bit surprising that the ETH put skew hasn't held more of a bid. The fact that it's only at about well, it's near zero right now in terms of what compared to Bitcoin, but I would have thought it would be about 5 vols over for puts, right? Given the move, but actually no, it's not. So I don't know what that means. If anything, maybe that makes it even more likely that the flash crash is kind of done now. The fact that no one's really holding or willing to hold puts at premium over Bitcoin puts. Obviously, the vol differential is quite high. So I suppose if the vol differential is 30 vols, then people are like saying, well, you know, it's not about owning downside or upside in ETH, just about owning at the monies. They're 30 vols over. So I think if the spread was a bit closer to Bitcoin, like 10 vols still, then you probably see more of a put premium. But I think because the spread's gone to 30, it's like people don't feel the need to buy downside. They'll just buy at the monies, basically. So the skew naturally flattens when the vol goes to like stupid numbers, basically. If you see what that, because there's not really that much marginal benefit in buying a downside option when the vols are so high, because the kind of Vanna that it gives you in terms of how much it grows in its Vega and Gamma positioning as the market goes down, it's very small when the vols are really, really high. So that people tend to like not care as much about owning skew when the vols are stupidly high. So you often do see a bit of flattening of skew when that happens. Okay.
Hi everyone. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Remember, this is just a little taster of what we do at Options Insight. To get access to all our research, including my in-depth vol market insights and a whole lot more, you can sign up at options-insight.com. I'll see you soon.